"You're good at your job, Elena. Nobody's disputing that," my manager Victoria said, her voice carrying the particular condescension of someone who'd already made her decision and was simply performing the explanation. "But leadership requires presence. Something you lack. The VP position needs someone who can command a room, inspire confidence, represent the company at the highest levels." She gave the promotion to her college roommate instead, a woman who'd been with the company for 6 months compared to my 7 years, whose presence apparently compensated for her inability to read a spreadsheet without assistance. I sat in that office absorbing the rejection, knowing exactly why I'd been passed over, and made a decision that would take 18 months to execute. I would document everything. Every stolen idea. Every deleted email. Every manipulated report. When the board announced an emergency investigation, and the CEO personally walked me into the conference room as our new VP of Operations, and the whistleblower who saved this company, my former manager started shaking, because she knew exactly what I'd found. Let me tell you about the employee who was told she lacked presence and the mountain of evidence she built in silence. I joined Meridian Technologies as a junior analyst in 2016. The company was a mid-sized logistics software firm, not glamorous but solid, providing supply chain solutions to manufacturing companies across the Midwest. I'd taken the job fresh out of business school, expecting to spend 2 years building experience before moving somewhere more prestigious. 7 years later, I was still there. Not because I couldn't leave, I'd had offers, but because I'd built something at Meridian. My team's efficiency metrics were the best in the company. My client retention rate was nearly perfect. I'd developed 3 major product improvements that had generated over $12 million in new revenue. I deserved that VP position. Victoria Chen knew it too. That's why she made sure I didn't get it. Victoria had been my manager for 3 years when the VP opening appeared. She'd inherited the operations division when the previous director retired, and from day one, she'd made clear that my competence was a threat rather than an asset. The pattern was subtle at first, taking credit for my ideas in meetings, CCing herself on my client communications, presenting my reports as collaborative work when I'd done them alone. I noticed but didn't complain. Office politics were unavoidable, and I assumed my results would speak for themselves. They should have. They didn't. Leadership requires presence. Something you lack. Victoria delivered this verdict while her friend Brittany Morgan, 6 months at the company, hired specifically because Victoria had pushed for her, sat in the office next door, probably already measuring the windows for curtains. "I've exceeded every metric for 7 years," I said carefully. "My team has the highest performance ratings in the division. My clients specifically request to work with me. And all of that is wonderful. You're an excellent individual contributor. But the VP role requires more than execution. It requires vision, strategic thinking, the ability to." The supply chain optimization project was my vision. The new client onboarding system was my strategic thinking. Those were team efforts, Elena. I'm not sure it's productive to claim individual credit. Team efforts. Projects I'd conceived, designed, and implemented while Victoria presented them to the board as her department's achievements. I understood then that the game was rigged. I also understood that I needed to start keeping records. The first folder I created was labeled Meeting Notes. Innocuous. Boring. Something any diligent employee might maintain. Inside, I began documenting every instance of credit theft I could verify. The August 2021 client presentation, where Victoria had presented my distribution algorithm as her own innovation. I had the original design documents with creation timestamps predating her involvement by 6 months. The October board report that listed department initiatives, my name had been removed from. I had email chains proving I'd originated and developed each item. The performance review where Victoria had described my work as adequate, while simultaneously presenting that same work to executives as evidence of her leadership excellence. The documentation expanded as I watched more closely. Victoria wasn't just stealing credit, she was manipulating data. Monthly reports to the board showed consistently improving metrics under her leadership. But when I compared those reports to the raw data I had access to, the numbers didn't match. She was inflating success rates, deflating problem indicators, and presenting a picture of departmental health that bore little resemblance to reality. The operations division wasn't thriving under her leadership. It was slowly deteriorating while she created fraudulent reports to hide the decline. I started saving everything. Screenshots with timestamps. Email archives backed up to personal storage. Copies of original reports alongside the modified versions Victoria submitted to executives. The folder grew from meeting notes to multiple encrypted directories, organized by date and category. I wasn't sure yet what I would do with the information, but I knew I needed it. Brittany Morgan took the VP position and immediately began failing upward. She couldn't run a department meeting without Victoria's hand-holding. She misunderstood basic logistics terminology in client calls. She made promises to customers that our systems couldn't support, generating problems my team had to solve while she took credit for the resolutions. Victoria covered for her constantly, spinning incompetence as leadership learning curve and mistakes as innovative risk-taking. The fraud expanded. Reports to the board became more creative, painting a division that existed only in Victoria's imagination. Actual performance metrics were buried under qualitative assessments that couldn't be easily verified. I documented it all. The breaking point came in month 14. A major client, Hendrix Manufacturing, our third largest account, threatened to leave after a series of service failures that Brittany had caused and Victoria had concealed. The account was worth $2.3 million annually. Losing it would be catastrophic. Victoria's solution was to falsify service records, making it appear the failures had been on the client's side rather than ours. She instructed my team to modify historical data, to create documentation that would support her narrative when the inevitable review occurred. I refused. "This is fraud," I told her in her office. "If we alter those records and it comes out during an audit, it won't come out. You'll make sure of that. I won't participate in falsifying data." Victoria's expression shifted from irritation to something colder. "Elena, you have two choices. You can be a team player who helps solve problems, or you can be a troublemaker who creates them. Team players get promoted. Troublemakers get managed out. Are you threatening my job because I won't commit fraud? I'm explaining how business works. Now, are you going to help fix this situation, or do I need to reevaluate your role on my team?" I left her office without answering. That night, I began organizing my documentation for external review. The whistleblower process at Meridian was theoretically straightforward. An anonymous hotline, managed by an external firm, designed to protect employees who reported misconduct. Reports were supposed to go directly to the board's audit committee, bypassing internal management entirely. Theoretically. In practice, Victoria sat on the committee that reviewed whistleblower reports for the operations division. Any complaint about her would cross her desk before reaching anyone with authority to act. I needed a different approach. I contacted the board chairman directly. Marcus Whitfield had founded Meridian 30 years ago and still served as non-executive chairman. He was 73, supposedly retired from day-to-day operations, but his reputation for integrity was legendary in the industry. I wrote him a letter. Physical mail, sent to his home address, which I'd found through public records. "Dear Mr. Whitfield, I've been an employee at Meridian for 7 years. I'm writing because I've documented systematic fraud in the operations division that threatens the company's financial integrity and reputation. The standard reporting channels are compromised. I need to speak with someone who has authority to investigate without warning the subjects of that investigation. I have evidence. I have documentation. I'm prepared to share everything, but I need assurance that this will be handled properly. Please contact me at the number below if you're willing to listen." I included a burner phone number I'd obtained specifically for this purpose. Marcus Whitfield called 3 days later. The initial meeting was at a coffee shop in a different city. Whitfield listened for 2 hours while I walked him through the documentation I'd gathered. The falsified reports, the credit theft, the data manipulation, the attempt to force me into participating in fraud. He asked careful questions, took notes, and betrayed nothing about his reaction until I'd finished. "How long have you been documenting this?" 14 months for the systematic issues. The data falsification started more recently. "Why didn't you report it sooner?" "Because Victoria controls the reporting channels." "And because?" I paused. "Because I wasn't sure anyone would believe me. She's very good at appearing competent to people who don't see her actual work." Whitfield nodded slowly. "The board hired Victoria on my recommendation. She interviewed well. Her references were impeccable." He met my eyes. "I've made a mistake. A significant one. But I need more than your documentation to act. I need verification from sources you don't control." "What do you need?" Time. And your continued silence. Can you maintain your position without alerting her while we investigate? I've been doing that for over a year. Then do it for a few more months. When we move, I want the case to be airtight. The investigation took 4 months. External forensic accountants reviewed financial reports. IT specialists examined email archives and document modification histories. HR consultants interviewed employees across the division, carefully, obliquely, without revealing the investigation's true purpose. Victoria noticed nothing. She was too busy preparing for the annual board presentation, too focused on creating another fraudulent picture of her department's success. I continued documenting, continued smiling in meetings, continued watching my stolen ideas presented as someone else's innovations. The waiting was excruciating, but the payoff was worth it. The board called an emergency meeting on a Thursday in March. No agenda was circulated in advance. Attendance was mandatory for all executives and senior managers. The only information provided was that significant matters requiring immediate attention would be discussed. Victoria arrived looking confident, assuming the meeting was about budget allocations or strategic planning. I arrived knowing exactly what was about to happen. Marcus Whitfield spoke first. Thank you all for coming on short notice. I'll be direct. This meeting concerns findings from an internal investigation that concluded yesterday. The investigation was initiated based on evidence provided by an employee in this room. He paused, letting the tension build. Our forensic review has uncovered systematic falsification of operational reports submitted to this board over a 30-month period. Financial metrics were manipulated. Service records were altered. Performance assessments were fabricated to conceal declining departmental health. Victoria's face had gone pale. The investigation also revealed consistent theft of intellectual property from subordinate employees, with ideas and innovations presented to leadership without crediting their actual creators. Brittany was staring at the table, probably calculating whether she could distance herself from her friend. The individual responsible for this fraud is Victoria Hartwell. Her employment is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort her from the building following this meeting. Victoria stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I've given this company 3 years of. You've given this company fraudulent reports and stolen credit from employees who deserved recognition. Whitfield's voice was cold. The documentation is comprehensive. Your access has already been revoked. He turned to me. The employee who brought this to our attention did so at significant personal risk. She spent 18 months gathering evidence while being repeatedly passed over for promotions she'd earned. She watched her ideas stolen, her contributions minimized, and her career deliberately suppressed by a manager who saw her competence as a threat. Every eye in the room found me. Elena Thornton is that employee. And after reviewing her actual contributions to this company, contributions that were systematically obscured by her former manager, this board has authorized her immediate promotion to Vice President of Operations. Whitfield stood and gestured toward the head of the table. Elena, please join me. You've earned this seat. I walked to the front of the room, passing Victoria's chair. She was shaking, actually trembling, as the reality of what was happening penetrated her disbelief. You, she whispered. You documented everything, every stolen idea, every deleted email, every manipulated report. I kept my voice level. You told me I lacked presence. Turns out I had enough presence to bring you down. The aftermath was comprehensive. Victoria faced potential criminal charges for the financial fraud. The district attorney's office was reviewing the case. Brittany was demoted to an individual contributor role, her incompetence finally exposed without Victoria's protection. I took the VP position I'd earned 7 years of work to deserve. The division's actual metrics, not the fabricated ones, showed we had significant work to do. But for the first time, we were addressing real problems instead of hiding them behind creative reporting. Marcus Whitfield asked me once months later why I'd stayed. You could have left, found another job, escaped the situation. Why spend 18 months documenting fraud instead of just walking away? Because walking away wouldn't have changed anything. Victoria would have kept stealing from the next competent employee. Brittany would have kept failing upward. The fraud would have continued until it caused real damage. So you stayed to fix it? I stayed because someone had to. And because I knew that if I built the case properly, the truth would eventually matter. Leadership requires presence, something you lack. Victoria said those words believing she was delivering a verdict that would end my ambitions. Instead, she motivated me to build the most comprehensive documentation of corporate fraud Meridian had ever seen. I didn't lack presence. I had the presence to watch silently while she incriminated herself. I had the presence to maintain composure for 18 months while gathering evidence. I had the presence to walk into that boardroom as the person who'd saved the company she was trying to destroy. That's leadership. Victoria just couldn't see it until it was too late.